that's hard to argue with right there. That is a fine little number. All right, let's sharpen this thing. This one I can come back and I can hit just a little bit. I mean, that is savage sharp. This point here should stick out slightly more than this point. Well, today we're going to work on making the best point that you could possibly make for hog hunting. And it's not that it's totally different than any other point that we really make, but there's just a couple little things that we want to keep in mind, and that being that hogs are just more dense than deer overall. So even something, let's say like a 75, 80 pound hog is as dense as like 150 pound deer. So we want to make sure that if we encounter a larger hog, let's just say 125, 150, 200 pounds, big old hog, especially a boar that would have that thick shield, but honestly, even a big old sow, that's a big old chunk of meat to shoot through. We want to make sure that we're optimized and really getting super streamlined. So it's just kind of a fun opportunity. Put together another napping video. I get to sit around and tell you guys what's going on, and you guys get to watch me work through and make a point. And I'm going to start off with this big old nodule of Georgetown, and then I'm going to work all of this and waste it all to make one tiny little point. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to knock a flake off of this quick, and as soon as I get a flake that I really like, which hopefully will just be within a couple hits, then we'll be able to start. But I'll talk to you a little bit about the Georgetown because it does relate to the Knap Easy as well, but I'll talk about that once I kind of get going a little bit. Just going to use a hammerstone and a little light tap here, there. That one is pretty good. It's got a little curl to it, and I don't know. It's one that I would spend some time on, but I'm not positive it's going to make exactly what we want. I can work with that one, though. It's got kind of a propeller twist thing, but I think we can work right through that. I don't think that's a problem. Honestly, I think the other one's fine, too. So, I guess before I let that go, I want to talk to you guys here a little bit about it. If you've been following the channel for a while, you guys have seen that I love Georgetown. I think Georgetown naps really nicely. Here's the issue with it, as I've seen with so many different rock sources. Getting this, if you've been following along with the website and purchasing rock for a long time, I appreciate you guys. You've probably noticed we haven't had Georgetown for a long time. I've got a few nodules left I saved for myself. Getting the quality, the quantity, and the quality is getting real hard. At this point, if you see it somewhere and you want Georgetown, get it. But this is something that I see all the time about these rock sources kind of open up, and then after a while it just kind of depletes itself down. And I mean, everybody's buying it and using it and whatnot, and I get it. It's a great rock, and I want to use it too. And then it just turns into an issue that we can't really get it anymore. Kind of how it worked out with the Pedernales. Pedernales was really great right up until it was gone. You lose access to the property or whatever the case may be. And I've watched that happen for a long time. All the years that I've been napping, watching different sources come and go. And it also hurts my feelings sometimes. And I'm fixing to give you a pitch on the Knap Easy. It hurts my feelings sometimes that I totally get it, but people will find a rock source and then they know that there's money attached to it, and so somebody will show it to them, or then they find it, maybe it's on public property or whatever, and they go in and just wipe it out. And people that were, I was going there and just getting a little bit here and there for me, they show up and it's like, wow, it's like gone, it's completely gone. Or it's people have caught onto it and shut it down. I've seen that happen all the time, and I get it. I mean, there's money to be made. I looked at that as an issue, moving, and that's one of the reasons that I developed the Knap Easy product. And then you'll also notice that this is basically, I modeled the buffalo jump and then just the standard kind of gray that we've got after Georgetown. And it works easier than Georgetown as it's Knap Easy, but color wise, and of course this one's got the streaks and stuff in it. And then I've got a solid color version. It doesn't have any streaks. It's just a solid gray. But just giving you a little bit of insight on that before I get to busting that up, because I know some of you guys are probably like, I know you're doing the Knap Easy. How come you're not going to do a Knap Easy point? And then other guys are probably sitting there at home saying, hey, we know that you do nap easy, but can you just go nap some natural rock? And the answer is absolutely yes. So I still love natural rock, but the nap easy fills a gap that I think needs filled, and it works really, really well. But that's probably enough about that for now. So I'd rather just work through this point. Yeah, see, that worked out pretty good. So if you notice, even if you want to rewind it a little bit, there was nothing to it. But all the little thin edges, I just bashed them off so I had a flake I could really look at. And I love starting with a little small flake like this. So I'm not looking to make a great big point anyway. So this is going to be about perfect for me. And then with having that ridge, we're going to be able to knock that off pretty darn quickly. Did I grab that one that I said I didn't want? Who knows? Either way, it worked out. Too busy talking to you about the Nap Easy. And as I get working through this, I'll tell you about what we're doing on this project coming up. But as you kind of figured it out from the title and the intro, we're doing a hog hunt, but it's a little different than normal. So yeah, let me go ahead and concentrate on this for a second, and then I'll tell you all about it. All right, so kind of ran that ridge. It's just moved it over a little bit. Might try to take one more. Yep, right down the ridge, moved it over. That's fine because we're going to clean it up from the side anyway. So anyway, yes, we are making a point to do a hog hunt with, but I get a lot of questions from folks. I get a lot of emails, a lot of messages on social media about people wanting to come to Florida and hunt hogs, especially guys that are coming and maybe the family's going on vacation to Disney, or they're coming down to visit family or something like that, and they're wanting to go do a hog hunt somewhere. Now, some folks want to go to an outfitter or a ranch, and I think that's a great idea. You probably should do that, especially if you're only here for a very short amount of time. You might as well get the best opportunity to get some shots on hogs. And I know that while that sounds great, some folks just don't have the budget for it, and they're just as happy to come out and try to hunt around on public land. And so that's what we're going to be covering in this month's set of videos, as I'm making one of the points for it. And we'll obviously do a little bit of a gear dump, things that you're going to need. That'll be the next video, things you're going to need if you come to Florida and want to do a DIY public land hog hunt. And we'll tell you kind of when and some places, and I'll give you some hints as to where to go and what to look for. And again, I have no idea how this project's going to go. I'm just kind of winging it. I mean, I've hunted on public land before, and I've certainly killed a lot of stuff. I suppose I can talk to you a little bit more about that too. But it's always a crapshoot when you're hunting public land. Like, we'll get on them. We always find hogs. Will I kill one or not? I don't know. But that's the mystery, isn't it? I guess that's why it's called hunting. So, anyway, yeah, I'll be giving you guys like a real rundown on the technique that I use to hunt hogs on public land. And I'm almost certain that we will find some, and I will do what I can, everything I can, not to give you specific spots that everybody's going to go to, but give you ideas on like how to actually hunt them effectively on public land. And then, of course, you can hunt them with whatever it is that you want. I'll be hunting them with sticks and rocks. And that season 2, which I'll talk to you a whole lot more about in the other videos, the best time for you to come is probably in small game season. And those dates will vary depending on the management area that you're going to be hunting. But generally speaking, it's going to run from like the 1st of January to the 1st of March. But then some close early, some close late, some don't have a small game season. But we'll cover that in another video. But basically plan on somewhere between January and February coming down, and then you can hunt hogs on public land in small game season with a bow. You're not allowed to use a rifle. You can use rim fire or a muzzleloader, but you can't use a center fire rifle during small game season. So which again, it doesn't matter much to me. I've actually killed quite a few in small game season with a flintlock, but I just don't need to, I just don't feel the need to really go do that. I just love hunting with sticks and rocks, so that's what I'll be sticking with. So anyway, yep, gonna make just a small point here. I've got all the edges beat down around it, and getting time to just kind of make some quick actions to thin. Ran a good one there. There we go. So again, always looking to, you know, make a fairly small point, especially for hogs. Small points kill small hogs really well, and small points are almost required if you get into big hogs, especially if it's a big boar and he's got a big shield on it, because you can absolutely have arrows completely stop penetration if you've got too big of a point. I mean, that'll happen on deer, but on hogs, without a doubt, they're just so dense. So a nice little streamlined point, nice and sharp, and make sure that we don't have any hang-ups in the notching area. Just a really clean point. I don't know yet if I'm going to do a corner notch or a side notch on this. I think I'll just let it doesn't matter to me. I shoot them with either or. I just want to make sure I've got a really sharp little needle tip and nice steep edge geometry and nowhere that it's going to hang up. So it's just a nice little flake point. It's really what it is. As I normally tell folks, if it does happen to be your first time following along with the channel, then if you're just getting into flint knapping and you just happen to stumble upon this one, I've got a Flint Knappers for Beginners, Flint Knapping for Beginners video that has helped a tremendous amount of people, and it's free right here on YouTube. You just type in on the search bar, Hunt Primitive Flint Knapping for Beginners, and I will put the thumbnail up on the screen, as I always do, so you guys can find it very easily, and that has helped a lot of folks. Now, video's getting several years old at this point. You'll notice that I was wearing a younger man's clothes and I had a lot less gray in my beard, and the shop was unfinished, but the information is still extremely sound, and I highly recommend that. That's helped a lot of folks get started. And then too, if you're looking for tools or good material, especially the Knap Easy, I'm loving to promote that stuff. But even natural rock as well. We don't have the Georgetown anymore, unfortunately, but that's just the nature of how this stuff goes. But we've got some other good options for you, and we got you covered. And if you want to buy it from somebody else and learn from us, that's fine too. Just as long as you guys are out enjoying flint knapping and hunting, that's all that really matters to me at the end of the day. But I do appreciate the business for those that do send it our way. Alright, so yeah, we're not working through and talking about every little flake that we're taking off. That's for the beginners video. I think most of the time folks are just watching to see kind of the process, and I always say that this has turned into kind of like it's not a podcast, but it's like a nap cast. So sitting around napping a point, and I'm just kind of letting you know what the next video is coming up, things that are happening in the shop. It's kind of like your Hunt Primitive news, if you will. And then I stop once in a while and say, there's a problem, let's fix that problem. And then we get back to the flint napping stuff. So with that, I will tell you exactly what I'm looking at. Already running this thing nice and thin. Not taking long at all. Again, just a nice little flake point. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. I got a little spot right here. As you can see, I can probably get under here and latch onto that with a micro flaker and remove it, but I'll save that for a little bit. This side's actually looking really good here, although I think we could take more off, but I got a little bit of like fingernail step fractures right here, if you can see that line. So I'm gonna, I think, actually crush this edge down on this side. I'm gonna use my pointer to show it to you. So I'm gonna remove flakes on this side to raise that platform, and I'm not trying to drive flakes, I'm just crushing to raise the platform so we can run underneath and get rid of these little fingernails. So remember, the fingernail step fractures, they're going to be up right now. And then I'm just going to crush, not a straight crush. I'm doing a little bit of push in, but not a ton. But really, I'm just raising the platform and also straightening this edge out just a little bit. And I'm using the XL flaker. Again, they last a really long time compared to the finer tip flakers that are meant for real flake removal. These are great for your grinding and edge prep work. A little more heavy duty. You can really abuse them up. There we go. So I kind of just chase that over right to the edge of that fingernail. I'll put that up too. And then I'm going to braid the same direction that I was removing flakes. Braid pretty good. And then I think I will hit it maybe just a couple more times with the bopper, nice and lightly. See, right there's that little funny spot I told you we get a hold of, but I haven't done that yet. A couple little pops there. One more. Didn't do what I wanted. I'm not going to push it with the bopper. Actually going to run straight into indirect on it. So let's get that up and rolling. Make sure the camera's facing where you guys can see it for this. And I'm going to braid that off again. And so I'm going to start right at the, not the very tip, but the tip of where the problem is. And remember, with this stuff, we're not putting a big, huge bite on it. A lot of people end up putting way too much bite, and then it digs in, and they don't get very good flake travel with it, and then they say that they struggle with indirect. So almost, you want to put it just above the platform. You don't want to put it directly on it, but just the bit, you want to put it just on top. There you go. I need to explain this a little bit better. So you're not just going to kiss it together. You're going to put the copper bit just on top just a little bit, not very much, and we're going to pick up on it so it's got some good tension. And then you're going to roll it down just a skosh, maybe like a 1/16 of an inch, and then pop it. And see, we ran that flake all the way almost to the other side. So let's do that again. I'll come up and I'm going to latch onto this one, and I'm going to pick up and I'm going to tilt it back just about a 1/16 and pop it. And then that's perfect right there. So we ran that one all the way over to meet this flake here on this other side. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, move down to the next one, set it just on top and kiss it. Now, like I said, this has too much pitch, so once you kiss it and you're on top, level it, pick up a little bit, and then back it off about 1/16 of an inch. And again, pretty much drove the other one. So we're just going to walk that down. I've got a kind of a crummy platform to work with right here, where it's crummy on top. I think we have just enough that I can get a hold of it. Now also notice that I'm not trying to drive a flake in from here straight across. I'm going to have to try to run it at an angle. If I can remove this as opposed to just straight across, then that's what I want. So keep in mind, we want to angle it now back towards what would be the base of the point. So I'm going to set it on here, and I'm going to pick it up and back it off a 16, but now I'm going to rotate the point, so I'm aiming the shock wave to run back towards this corner and hopefully follow that line. Hopefully. See exactly what we wanted there. That's perfect. So remember, we had that weird line. We just angled the whole thing back and ran it right down over the top of that and off to the other side. So that was absolutely ideal. I told you guys in a previous video, I think, maybe, I can't remember, they all kind of run together. I was talking about at one point doing a video explaining indirect percussion a little bit more, and then I realized I didn't have to do a whole video on it. I just needed to explain it better in the moment on each individual video. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. So again, same thing. I'm actually going to angle this one back the same direction. So I want to set the bit up on it just a little bit above it, kiss it, pull it up level, tilt it back a little bit, and now I want to angle it. And that one ran it actually stopped and hinged on me just a tiny bit there, but that's, I mean, that's nothing. I'm not worried about that at all. And I got one more that I'm basically just coming flat across on. Whoops. So, yeah, gotta reset it under your leg sometimes too. Hit it and it wobbles out. Alright, I'm gonna pick up on it. I'm gonna level it out, and I'm gonna back it off about 1/16 of an inch. And then we ran that one just like that. So that worked out really well. Alright, so that's actually already looking pretty darn thin. We got a little bit more here on this little back edge. I think I'll go ahead and clip that real quick. Yep, just kind of ran that one up. There's really, honestly, no real need to do any significant thinning at this point. It's pretty darn thin. It's just a weird shape. So now let me see how I can do with this. If I can pull you guys in here a little bit more as we do this fine work. It's just now I start getting off the camera when I work. But I'm going to take the XL flaker again, and I'm going to crush these edges and start honestly just crushing it into the shape of the point that I want. So I'm taking off, like, I bet you a quarter, maybe an eighth or a quarter of material, just crushing it and just working it in, because we had this weird clipped corner. This side's looking great. I mean, there's a little bit to thin out right here. That's not a big deal. We'll raise the platform. We'll thin that with pressure, probably, maybe indirect. But I'm like, at this point, this side, I have no issues with it. This side has that clipped corner, and it's way too wide. So I'm just going to crush this in closer, which is inevitably going to build us a new platform on one side or the other. In fact, I'd rather it be on this side, although we'll see how I feel as it gets closer. But we're just going to crush it in and we'll make a platform. We'll do one more set of thinning flakes, and then we'll be ready to notch. So we're really able to blow through these flake points really, really fast. And then I'll get into the more specific qualities that I want to make sure that you guys are paying attention to when you're really hunting anything. All your points should be optimized, you know, for hunting deer and everything, but we're going to especially cover those points again in this video, those topics again, because I don't want you to come get on a hog hunt and then next thing you know really hang up in a little bit of a thick shield and you don't penetrate, and then I'll feel bad that I didn't, I probably won't know because you probably won't tell me, but I'll still feel bad knowing that there's somebody out there that I didn't bring this to their attention and then they ended up having a bad experience with it. So anybody ever wonders how a single bevel, like a early archaic single bevel point's done, that's pretty much it. You just crush one edge of it. But we talked about that in another video. It's just kind of a fun fact. We're not making one of those today, but you crush that edge and essentially you're just sharpening it solely on one edge and it creates the bevel. And it's not that it penetrates better or anything, but once you start getting a bigger point, especially for an atlatl, it becomes a little bit more robust, so that edge isn't as likely to break when thrown off of an atlatl, but also it allows the point to be sharpened many, many more times over, as opposed to bifacial sharpening. But when it comes to arrowheads, you really need to have it super streamlined, and that single bevel tends to have a lot more drag, and you do not want that for an arrowhead, not a stone arrowhead. If you got a steel single bevel arrowhead, that's something totally different. But on a stone point, the single bevel points are atlatl points, not arrows. So we need to make sure we have everything super streamlined on an arrowhead, especially if you're going to be shooting a contextual wood bow, and then doubly if you are shooting a sinew string. There we go. It's a nice one. Made just another tiny little fingernail. Actually, I just picked it off with my fingernail, and now it's pretty smooth across there. It's going to be a nice thin little point, which is what you want. And I know some folks would say, well, if you're hunting something that's bigger and more robust, don't you want a thicker point so it's not as likely to break? Like, remember, this is all about penetration. I don't want the thing so skinny and frail that it just blows up. But I mean, you almost can't get them too thin. I mean, I suppose you can, but you can't really. And I want you to get penetration through a more robust animal. And the point only has one job to do. Cut a hole for the arrow to follow, and then after that, pretty much its job's done. I mean, it's going to cut everything on the way in. If it breaks, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. As long as it gets in there and messes some stuff up, that's all that matters to me. And if you don't hit anything, any sort of robust bones or anything, then honestly your point's still going to be fine. But it doesn't hurt my feelings if the point breaks once it's gotten through the initial skin and through the rib cage. If it clips a corner off of it or whatever, as long as we got penetration into the organs, I am perfectly fine with it breaking, because then those breaks create new sharp edges that really mess stuff up too. So mess organs up. So again, I'm gonna look at that and take a good bite on it. I'm gonna pick it up, put about level, and then back it off about a 1/16. And we ran that one really nice. Boy, it got a travel down in. I had a little too big of a bite on the other side, but it cleaned that up really nicely. That's a thin little bugger right there. So pick it up just back a 1/16. We follow that out. That's how I'm going to refer to indirect anymore. Remember, pick up, level, and then down to 1/16. You guys do that, and I think you're going to be very happy with indirect percussion. That is a nice thin piece. And then, of course, every material you work is going to be slightly different as well, so you might have to adjust it a little bit. You just kind of read it. If you're not getting the flake travel that you're wanting, it's biting in too deep, then take more pitch out of it. And if it's not running it far enough, put more pitch in it. You're just going to have to adjust per every different type of rock. I had a fun analogy to share with you, and now I lost it. Boy, that is nice. That is a nice little point. I was going to go out and do some hunting tonight, and then I figured that I better be getting this video done for y'all before I go hunt. Obviously, I've got arrows already made and ready to go hunt. But who knows if I'll get one shot with this one or not. You never know. I mean, that's the idea, but I'm just showing you what's on the end of my arrows that I'm hunting with right now. Man, this is coming out clean. Holy smokes, that's nice. I don't even want to hit it anymore. Okay, I've got one little spot here. I don't even want to hit it with indirects. I can take that off with pressure. Perfect. And there's that little spot there on the tip. I'm not in a rush to take that off completely, but I'm going to downsize to just the normal size pressure flaker. And I'm going to remove a little bit on this side to clean it up. I just don't want to save it all the way to the end and then have to put excess pressure on that tip. So I'm going to get up under it. There we go. See if I can pop a little bit of that off, which we did. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, I don't want to develop the tip perfectly yet, because I'm going to do that when we're notching it, because if you develop that tip just absolutely perfectly, then you stand a chance while you're notching accidentally having a little extra pressure and popping that tip off. And we don't want to do that. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. This is where we single beveled that side really hard to run these flakes, which worked out great. But now we're going to erase that single bevel by taking more flakes going the opposite direction of that bevel, which is going to help thin it out. And then we're going to be able to come back and actually remove the last little bit of that bevel as well. So yeah, very nice little point. But yeah, I wish that I genuinely wish that we could have a full lifetime supply of Georgetown, which is it's funny to me too that there's so many people that actually don't really like Georgetown. They don't think it naps very well, and to me, I think it naps just wonderful. But that's why it's like everybody's got their own preferences. As I say, there's an ass for every seat. Some people love it. Some people are like, meh. I think it's one of the absolute best natural materials in the world. If we could get 6 lifetimes of supply of it, I'm telling you I would. But I will tell you that the Nap Easy, without a doubt, does nap even easier than this. And if you haven't tried it out, I recommend you do. Thus far, and it's now been out for several months, nobody's come back to me with any sort of an issue with it. I mean, I'm sure you can't please everybody, I know that. But nobody's called me up mad about nothing or whatever. Anybody that's gotten back to me tells me how much they like it, and then they buy more. So at least give it a try, and it's gonna at least help cut back on the usage of these natural rock supplies. It's not going to eliminate it, and I want to still work natural rock, and I want you to work natural rock. I want everybody to, but if we could at least cut back on it a little bit, especially when you're just beginning and you're not really creating good points, you're just crushing stuff up, that's where the Nap Easy really is handy, because you're not busting it up. Busting up good rock. I can make that stuff. It's still quite a process to make, but it's made from all natural stuff. There's no modern glues or anything in it. It's all natural, just like a natural rock is made. It's just made in a controlled environment. And so it's all natural, and it naps the same way, just easier. And it's great to hunt with. It's kind of a win-win-win all the way around. The only downside is it didn't come naturally from the ground, although the individual components did come naturally from the ground. So anyways, I'll stop pitching you on that, at least for now. I hope you don't mind. I just work so hard on the stuff, and I'm very excited about it. Yep. Alright, we're really getting this thing crushed into shape. I'm going to true up the back here just a little bit. I do enjoy making a good hunting point, though. You'll notice I don't do a whole lot of variances on points. I'm sure you guys have figured that out. That there's a lot of nappers out there, and admittedly, guys, there's a lot of guys that are way better nappers than I am, and they are good at making all kinds of different points. And I say good on them. I love it. I always encourage folks to do that. I love to see folks napping. I just make little hunting points to hunt with, and I don't usually get crazy about stuff. I make knife blades, I make outlateral points, and I make arrowheads. And although some folks get them to put into a display case, they're really just meant to take out and run through animals and make meat. So I just kind of do the same thing over and over and over, and try to get a little bit better every time I do it. And today was a good one on that. I thus far really worked this one out very, very nicely. From just that little flake. That's because I'm in a good mood, and you always nap better when you're in a good mood. Couple more on this side, just cleaning up that edge, driving some flakes. I'm like kind of crushing it into the shape, but at the same time I am driving a couple final thinning flakes on the edge. And I'm just about done with this XL flaker, doing all the heavy lifting. Man, that is nice and thin. Look at that. Nice and thin. Getting very close. Whew, that baby is nice. Alright, just a tiny bit more with the XL flaker because I want to crush it into the final shape that we're going to make. And I'll true that. It's like I'm just doing like a light crush on the edges, building those little platforms that are going to be, started to lose my grip on it there, that are going to be real handy for running those sharpening flakes. And then I'm going to true up the back here just a little bit. This is like the perfect size. I'm loving this. This is a really nice little hunting point. I do hope that I take this out here on some public land hogs. I hope I know we'll find some at some point. If I can close the gap, if the wind doesn't get me, and if I can close the gap on them and get a shot, that would be very, very nice. And if not, hopefully we'll stick with it and we'll get on them a few more times too. I don't have a ton of time to spend doing the public land hog hunt, so I kind of gotta, when I set the days aside to do it, I gotta really put my best foot forward on it and try to get it done. But that's why I'm going to be teaching you guys how exactly I do it. And it's not as primitive as you think. You got to do a good combination of miles on your feet, but you also got to do quite a bit of miles in your vehicle, hitting spot to spot. So we can't just hunt anywhere we want, obviously, and since it's public land and folks are out there with modern equipment shooting them and bumping them around, modern problems require modern solutions, and that modern solutions often comes in the form of a Toyota. Man, this is just a beauty. What a beauty of a little preform there. Thin as all get out, and that is going to make a heck of a hunting point right there. I'm going to start working on this. I'm going to go ahead and do a side notch on it, like you guys see me do all the time. I'm going to do the side notch, and then I'm going to at least key in on a couple little things to watch out for to make sure that you're going to get the best penetration possible. And this goes for any animal, but like I said, you're going to shoot a more dense target. We'll go over about taking care of the trailing edges, and I'll give you a couple things that you can do to really just kind of test your points. You know how I talk about when I'm hoping you guys know that when I take one of my arrows that's finished, I always say squeeze your hand together and stick it between your fingers and push. And if the transition just whoop slides right through, then you know it's a good transition. But if it stops and pushes, it's like your transition's too thick. It's kind of the same way with the side of your point. If you can run your finger up the edge of your point and it catches on the back half of the notch, then you know that the back half of your notch is sticking out a little bit too far. And a lot of times you can get away with that on deer or smaller hogs or whatever, but especially if you live up north and have big deer, or you're hunting elk, or just be extra aware of that. You don't want to have anything that can really cut down and snag your penetration, snag on the point to decrease your penetration. So we're just going to be a little bit aware of that, and I'm going to chip out those notches. Same thing, tell you guys all the time. I know that's one of the deals too. Always people saying, man, I'm not getting my notches very deep, they're not turning out. Two big takeaways from this video I can tell you is you get your points nice and thin, your notching is going to be easier. It's just that simple. So work on getting your points thin. I also have another video that's along the lines of the flint knapping for beginners, and it's called thinning. I don't know, something thinning, flint knapping for beginners, thinning. I don't know. I'll put a thumbnail up on the screen if I can remember to do that. And that's a really good one, talking about thinning. That's going to help your notching quite a bit. And then I've got some notching and sharpening videos also, but the big thing I've been really teaching you guys in the last few videos of this is don't just go in at the same angle every time, like you're taking a couple off this side and a couple off this side. You can do that for the first few. Once you get that established, you need to change the direction in which you are removing flakes. So you're going to come up to one corner and remove a flake, and then the other corner and remove a flake, flip it over. So you're making what in early archaic points was called an E-notch, but we're doing it at a much smaller scale. Like an E-notch actually has quite a sizable notch, but it looks like the letter E, or the number 3 is what it really looks like. It doesn't look like an E, but it's called an E-notch. But this is a very small version of that, in that we're not just going in and chipping straight, but I'm taking a chip out this way, and then a chip out this way and flipping it over, and then one out this way, and it almost creates like the little, I mean, I'll draw it here, it's pretty self-explanatory. Like if this is the side of the point, it's gonna look like this, like it almost creates this little nipple in the middle, so you're constantly just removing here and here, and if you get stuck, you can chip this off and use this to kind of restart. And the E-notches and the early archaic points, they just left those. And maybe it was a stylistic thing. I don't think it really matters. But to me, that's really handy, because when I'm ready to finish it off, I can use that to just kind of, now I can just chip a little bit in the center, and that drives my notches a little bit further. And again, there's a whole lot of guys out there that are just better flint knappers than me, and they can notch way better. I'm just giving you some information on how I do it. In fact, now I already know the next question that somebody's going to ask is, say, when are you going to go back and use all abo, all antler tools again? And I suppose I'm about due to put together a project and just do knapping all abo. But it's interesting because most people, they want to see using the modern tools because that's what they're using. But I like them all. I will say that this year, since we're having new videos every once a week and a new hunt every month, at least that's the game plan, I do have, of course, an atlatl video, at least one, coming out in the relative future, summertime most likely. Do a spear hunting video. And in that one, I almost guarantee you then I'll use, because it's such old technology, throwing the atlatl, it just doesn't feel right to use modern tools on it. So we'll get back to doing some then, for sure. But for now, most people, they want to learn about using the tools that they're using. So my modern tool videos actually do better than my primitive tool videos, so I'm just reading what the viewer wants. If you want to see more abonap videos, just let me know. I'll be happy to do them. If a big majority of people say, shoot, yeah, I want to see that, then of course, I'm here to please. Alright, we've got this just about kicked in. Could be a little further in, a little cleaner, but that's hard to argue with right there. That is a fine little number. Alright, let's sharpen this thing. I usually, at this point now, I carry like 2 microflake. I have like 2 of everything. I mean, I make them, I suppose I can. But all of my tools are kind of in this progression. I get a new one, and then that's going to be my notcher because it reaches in further. And then as they get worn down, I keep sharpening them down, so then the tip gets smaller and smaller. Still works fine for notching, they just don't reach in as far. But then the small ones end up turning into my sharpening flakers. And same thing kind of with boppers. I only have one here, but you'll notice some of them are more rounded on the tips. And you're like, oh, how do you, I want one of the rounded ones. It's like, well, how you get that is you get the square ones, and then the more you use it, it naturally rounds. If you start with a rounded one, then you're actually shortening the life of it. So I mean, I don't care what other people make or sell or use or whatever, but to me personally, once it's round, it's going to start creating a cone on the end, and so you're really decreasing the life of it by starting with one that's round. They turn round naturally over time. So I always start with the square edges, but I like to have a round one occasionally as well. It doesn't really matter to me too much. They serve two different purposes. And so I always start with a square one. And I always have, and I still have a square one. It's just over there. I just haven't used it on today's point at all. And I do that with the 1-inch boppers as well. And I use the square one for certain things, and then I use the round ones for certain things, and then over a period of time, you cone out those round ones so bad that you're like, I don't want it anymore, the head comes loose, just throw it away. And then I buy a new square one, and then this other square one turns into the round one, if that makes sense. But same way here with the flakers too, so I always have multiple flakers because they're always in varying stages of being worn down. Okay, so working on the sharpening here. So now you're going to get the sharpening tutorial basically all over again. This is how we make the sharpest points that you could possibly hunt with. And I'm always trying to teach people to make the sharpest points that they can hunt with. Little serrations work great. A super flat edge isn't usually terribly sharp. You want some stuff that really grabs a hold of you and wants to grab you and tear you up. So I'm going to go about the same distance as the width of the flaker is the distance between my serrations. Maybe a little wider than the tip of the flaker, but not a whole lot. And I'm going for that individual click. Remember that click sound? I talk about that in other videos. I don't want the grinding sound, so down at the tip, I don't mind grinding the tip. You'll hear the crunchy crunch that sound. Now I'm going to go up that side, and I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm going to do the other side the same direction. I usually start right at the leading edge of the trailing edge, if that makes sense. The leading edge of the trailing edge of the point. I always start there, and then I'll come in and I'll make a serration on the trailing edge of the leading edge, and then I typically work towards the top. I don't know that it really makes a difference, but I like my serrations to be proper around the notches. It's less likely for me to nip the corners. If I start at the tip and come back and it doesn't even out, now I have either one really wide notch or serration or one really shallow one, or I nip the edge off. So that's why I do that. I don't think it's imperative. You'll probably adopt your own style. That's just what I do. I'm going to work all the way up to that tip again. Actually going to grind that tip. I don't care that much about flake removal there. I'm actually grinding that tip. If you've seen that too, sometimes I come in and I'll actually grind that tip down because I'm trying to make actually a smooth, pointed, very, very strong tip for initial penetration. Now, funny enough, one pass alone on that, just up one side, that's probably sharp enough to hunt with. In fact, that side is just terribly sharp. Holy smokes. However, I'll definitely look down it, and anywhere that needs sharpened, I will sharpen. And then especially if it's got anything that's sticking out, which is funny, I do have this one here, which is a really sharp serration, but it's sticking out almost too far, so I'm going to nip that one. There we go, that's a little bit better. And then flip it over. And I'm still on the inside. The same serration that I made, I'm not nipping the tip off, I'm on the inside of that serration, taking again one click off. And you're seeing the flakes too. Hopefully you can see the flakes that I'm taking off here. They're individual, they're not crushed, they're little flakes that are coming off. And that's what's going to give us that really scary sharp edge. And that thing is terrifyingly sharp on that edge. I ain't going to mess with that one anymore. This one I can come back and I can hit just a little bit. I mean, that is savage sharp. Right there. In fact, I can look back on this edge here. I want to take one more out of there. There we go. That's the one. And really just the same deal. I'm just running all the way up in between, trying to get one click as much as possible. If it has a little grind, it's okay. We'll go back and check it. And then along the tip, we're just gonna little tiny choppy ones, and there we go. See how that is? Whew, that's good. It's not quite as sharp as the other side. I got one or two little spots here. There we go. That's a good one there. Might have one little spot there I don't love, but we'll have to just deal with it. It's one serration. I think it'll be fine. Oh yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Okay, now this is the point here I wanted to really show you guys before I do the tip. I want you to take your finger and run it right across here, nice and gently. Close your eyes when you do it, and see if you can feel where the notch is. You can typically feel where the notch is. Now, does your finger catch anything? And if it does, which this one doesn't really, but come in here and just trim it down a little bit. It's okay to go through another sharpening cycle. But this point here should stick out slightly more than this point. So this way, when this penetrates, it doesn't hang up, but this still has cutting, so cutting potential. And if it doesn't, honestly, this is plenty. But this way, it's not going to hang up on anything. So now this side, I haven't checked that side. Let's see how that is. That's already kind of recessed a little bit, but I'll recess that just a tiny bit more. It's not going to hurt. If you want to get the absolute best penetration you can, again, close your eyes, run your finger. If you can feel where that notch is, if it slides beautifully over, you are good to go. If your finger catches on here, if you'll know, you run your fingerprints along it, and if it catches your fingerprint and tugs, then you know that right there, it just needs a little bit more work. Okay, so that's really solid. Let's work that tip down just a little bit. So I'm going to take, notice I'm not coming in at that angle. I'm not trying to drive flakes over. I'm flicking it over, so I am getting individuals here. We'll see if you guys can see those there. So they are individual flakes. They're not just crushing. But I'm not doing it, I'm not trying to run flakes across. And I don't care if I do grind a little bit, like the first quarter inch, maybe 3/8. I don't need any serrations on that. There's plenty of serrations back here to cut stuff up. Now I also want to make sure I don't have just like this smooth tip and then all of a sudden this big massive serration, because then that's just going to suck too. It's going to grab a hold of the hide. So make sure you come in here and clean that up so it's kind of a smooth transition, maybe even getting from no serrations up to small serrations, and then a little bit more defined. And then I'm always looking at the tip going, where does anything need removed to really true it up, clean it out. Same thing, I'm just going to come in on the side. And this one's got a little spot that bows out just a little bit, so we're going to take care of that. Super easy. Not much to it. It's almost just taking another row of sharpening flakes. And then that tip just needs, I want a needle sharp tip on there. That cut on contact is incredibly important. If you've got a blunt tip that's rounded or really dull, that's going to significantly cut back on your penetration, and in some instances can even bounce off. So that is a very, very sharp little tip, a nice thin point. I mean, that's about as good as it gets right there. This back half, there's nothing to catch my fingers. It is absolutely beautifully smooth, and I would say that is just shy of an inch wide. I bet you it's 15th, 16th if I put a tape measure on it. It's a little bit bigger than 7/8, but bet you it's short of an inch. So, yep, That's it. That's going to be about the best point that you can make right there. Look how thin that is. No hang-ups. Beauty. Beauty of a point right there. Let's go kill us a hog. Alright guys, I'm going to see you in the next video. So we got a heck of a little point here. We'll do a little bit of a gear dump or something, let you guys know exactly what you need when we're hunting hogs. Remember, at least for 2025, at least that's the plan. New videos every single week. Sometimes we're going to have like a wild card. It could be about anything. The last wild card you got was the bone, antler, and ivory video. That's a pretty good one. I recommend that one quite a bit. Then we're going to do a flint knapping video for the upcoming hunt, which we let you know what the upcoming hunt's going to be, and then usually like a gear dump or something, and then we get into the actual hunt. And again, this one is going to be hunting hogs on public land in Florida and basically teaching you how to find them, get on them, and get hogs killed DIY public land. So anyway, see you on the future videos.